Welcome back to the vlog. This is Everyday, and I want to talk about velocity in sales. It's an important concept. How fast are you generating new opportunities and winning those opportunities? There's only a couple things that you need to think about here when you're trying to gain velocity in sales. And the first is prospecting. And let's be clear about this. A lot of sales managers believe that activity is everything, and because they're focused solely on activity, they never generate the results through their team that they're capable of. And as a salesperson, activity is critically important for you, but it also has to be matched with effectiveness. So more activity by itself isn't going to give you velocity. What you're looking for is a combination of greater activity with greater effectiveness. And it's the effectiveness that you really need to worry about, because you can make hundreds and hundreds of calls, and if you're terrible at cold calling, if you're terrible at gaining appointments, if you're terrible at creating the relationships that allow you to create opportunities, all the prospecting in the world isn't going to help you. So what we're looking for is more prospecting done more effectively. That's the first thing you need to focus on to create velocity. Now let's talk about opportunity creation. All opportunities are not created equal. Some are far better. They have a much greater likelihood of coming true. And what you're looking for are opportunities where there is a real and compelling case, a real and compelling reason for your client to want to change. If they don't want to change, they will spend a lot of time exploring change with you, but with no real commitment to change. And that's the third commitment in the 10 commitments. If you look at the lost art of closing, that's the one where we have to ask, does it make sense? Is it important to do this now? Is there something else we should be working on? Are we going to be able to get the resources? Are we going to be able to get the support of your team? Are we going to be able to get the money to make this kind of change? And if the answer is no, it may be a deal that you can put in a pipeline, but you can't put it in a forecast because we're not there yet. We don't have a commitment to really change, so it's not something that we can count on. So what you're really focused on is opportunities where there's a real and compelling case to change, where the client agrees that they need to change, and where they're deeply engaged in that process with you. Because when they're not engaged in that process, it can take a very long time if a deal ever comes true at all. And if people learn to live with their pain long enough, they tend to be harder and harder to move over time until some external event gets a hold of them and causes them to have to change. A couple other points. Value creation is the critical factor here. How can you create that case for change? How can you help them get a vision of their future where they have much better results, where things are going better for them, where they're displacing their competitors, where they're growing market share, growing wallet share, growing their revenue? Whatever the case is, when it's your ROI, it's your ROI. I don't know what that is, but there has to be some value creation there where you show up as a trusted advisor and you give them some idea, some insight, something to do that allows them to propel their business forward. That's going to create velocity. So you need to think through this lens. And the last thing I want to tell you is, when you think about velocity, it means you control the process. And I know people sometimes have an interesting response when I say control the process. I didn't say control the outcome. I didn't say use force, use manipulation, coerce people to get what you want and do whatever it takes to win, because that's bad advice. Don't do whatever it takes. Don't ever trade your honesty, your integrity, your character for a win right now. It never makes sense to make that trade. But it does make sense to have a conversation around the process and say, the next thing that we need to do together to move you forward is this. When can we have this meeting and this conversation? When can we bring in these additional stakeholders? When can we do an ROI analysis and review that with you? And if you look at the lost art of closing, you can walk straight down the path of commitments. Can we explore change? Does it make sense to do this now? Can we collaborate on what the solution looks like? Can we get the rest of your team to concede that this is the right thing to do, and can they join us in this endeavor? Can we talk about the money? Will you review our proposal and make sure it looks right before we hand it over? Can we resolve your concerns? All those stages tend to be things that buyers have to do in order to say yes. And it's harder than ever for them to get consensus inside their own company, and they don't have a process. And when you sell something that's strategic and complicated and expensive especially, how many times does your client make that purchasing decision in their life? Maybe they make that purchasing decision 3 times. They don't have the experience to know how to get this done, but you do, because you're consultative, because you're their trusted advisor, because you have experience, and because you help people change every single day. So if you want velocity, control the process, get those commitments moved forward, and by allowing the client to decide what time frame they're working on, you tend to stretch deals out longer than they have to be because you're not guiding the process. So guide the process. That's how you get velocity. Prospect effectively, create value, make sure that the effectiveness counts for every bit as much as the activity, and control the process. Hit the like button, hit the share button. This is Everyday. Oh, hit subscribe too. This is Anthony Iannarino, and this is Everyday. I'll see you back here tomorrow.